Hi loves, it's your girl Pandora Lakora here, and today I wanted to make a video talking to you about belly dancing and why I'm a belly dancer now, the effect that it has had on my health and fitness in general, my body image and self-esteem and confidence, my mental health recovery, and just my enjoyment of life in general. And I also wanted to talk about the issue of cultural appropriation as it relates to belly dancing, so I will do that first. So first of all, I just wanted to get out of the way that obviously I'm a white person. I am somebody who is of the dominant culture. So anything that I have to say about cultural appropriation is going to be less important than something that is said by somebody from the marginalized culture in question. And this is probably not going to be the last time I talk about cultural appropriation on this channel. I have actually got another video that is scheduled for upload. And I watched a really great video recently by Drew Echoes of the channel She Who Walks Between the Worlds, and I'll link to that one below because like the tone of it's a little bit ranty, which I think is great, but she gets all of her points across really clearly, and it's a really great video, and she just breaks down what is cultural appropriation and what isn't cultural appropriation, and talks about how white people and white allies need to learn to step back and let people from marginalized cultures step forward and speak about it for themselves. And it's really important as an ally to know when to do that, because yeah, sometimes it's not for us to say what's appropriate and what's not. And also Drew talks about the difference between cultural appropriation and something that is a fair and equal cultural exchange. And so there is some cultural appropriation and issues of that within belly dancing, but there is also a lot of things that are just a fair cultural exchange, and I'll talk about that in this video. So yes, modern belly dancing is westernized, and it's actually a fusion dance. So it's not actually a reproduction of Eastern styles of dance necessarily. Sometimes we do dance Turkish and Egyptian styles of dance, but a lot of what we do is cabaret style, and what my teacher teaches me is predominantly cabaret style. She does teach us some cultural dances, and her name is Melanie Achilles. In case you are actually from the Gladstone region and you're watching this, yes, her name is Melanie Achilles. She is fabulous. She's a fantastic teacher. Her passion for belly dance just absolutely shines, and she loves sharing her love of dance with everybody. And her business name is Veils of Arabia Belly Dance, and she also has a costuming business called Desert Fire Belly Dance Costumes, and I'll link to both of those ones below. And Melanie has actually been to Istanbul in Turkey, and she learnt a lot of dances there, and she said that the man that she learned one particular dance from, the way that he taught the dance was so open-hearted, and he just shared his love of this dance just right from the heart to all of his students. And obviously he was getting paid for doing that. So that is one example of something that is not cultural appropriation, but an equal cultural exchange. And for the most part, I think that with belly dancing, that's what happens. And like if you steal someone's dance and you dance it in a performance where you're getting paid or something, then that would maybe be cultural appropriation and things like that. But for the most part, if you learn a dance from somebody, you've paid them to learn that dance, and you then dance it, and you're not even necessarily making any money. I think Melanie has said to me that she doesn't actually make that much money. She gets people to pay to come to class, and then that will cover her insurance, the cost of the hall, and things like that. And her costuming business, I don't really know how much money she makes from that, but like she's doing fine. Her husband works, and you know, Gladstone's an industrial town, so I don't know exactly what he does, but he works in the industry, so they're doing fine. But she's certainly not getting rich from belly dancing or her costuming business or anything like that. So yeah, there's that. And so one issue of cultural appropriation within belly dancing that I can find concerning sometimes is the use of the word tribal, and sometimes the word tribal is misused, like even within spirituality and other areas of life. But in belly dancing, you have to be really careful with using the word tribal, and sometimes tribal is used to refer to a style of dance, and sometimes it's used to refer to a style of costuming. And so like some costumes in the cabaret style have got a lot of sequins on them and rhinestones and things like that, and they're very colourful, whereas other costumes have got more of your coins like these, and like sometimes cowrie shells and some like weaving or crochet or macrame. I don't really know exactly what it is, but sometimes that style of costuming is referred to as tribal, and I think you have to be careful with that. I prefer to describe the style of costuming for what it is rather than revert back to using a word like tribal. So yeah, and so yeah, belly dancing is modern, it's cabaret style, it's a fusion style of dance, and it doesn't necessarily involve cultural appropriation. Another thing about the costuming that I wanted to say, and this isn't necessarily about cultural appropriation, but like all of my clothes, I care about how my costumes are made and where they come from and whether they're ethical, and I don't want to buy a costume that is made cheaply using cheap labor where somebody is not earning a living wage for making that. And so I try to be really careful with that now, and I'll prefer to buy costumes that are either handmade by somebody, preferably locally, or that I know have come from somewhere where somebody is earning a living wage, or it's not slave labor, basically. Just like with all of my clothes, I care about that now. So that's a concern for me with my costuming. And so I think that I've got the cultural appropriation thing out of the way now, and I just want to talk about why I belly dance, why I love it so much, and everything like that. So I've been belly dancing seriously for about the past 6 years. I've always sort of been interested in belly dancing. I think the first time I saw like a picture of someone belly dancing or a cartoon or something on TV, I thought to myself like, yep, that's for me. And it's one of the things that I always knew was right for me from very early on in life. Like a few other things, like the first time I ever saw someone laying on a couch talking to a psychiatrist or something, or like a counselor or whatever, I thought, yep, that's for me. And I knew from then on that I wanted to be in a helping profession of some kind. And it's the same with belly dancing. I saw it and I was like, yep, that's for me. But I didn't really start belly dancing until later on in life. Like when I lived in Townsville briefly for a few years in my late teens and early 20s, I went to a couple of terms of classes with a lady named Cara from Skimtar Moon Belly Dancing, and that was really great. I really enjoyed that. Moved to Gladstone from Townsville, and I was really happy to find that Melanie was teaching belly dance here in Gladstone, and I went to a couple of terms of her classes, but didn't really keep going, and I can't even really explain exactly why that is. I think maybe I just got busy working, and I thought maybe it wasn't a good use of my time and money. And another big part of it was body image. I kind of thought maybe I was a bit too chubby at that stage, and I didn't really want to be wearing costumes and dancing in front of people, even though I really loved dancing and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, unfortunately, I let my body image issues hold me back. And how sad is that, right? Like, I just think that that's really sad. I look back now and I wish that I had kept dancing even though I wasn't skinny anymore, because growing up I was always like this. Like, I was always a very skinny child and a skinny teenager. I was very petite and I had a flat stomach at the time, which I now don't. My stomach is actually the first part of my body where I put on weight, and like, I wish that I could be one of those women who have the big hips, buns and thighs and, you know, that nice curvy look about them with maybe a flat stomach. And if you're one of those women and you complain about it, just stop. Like, you're beautiful. And so yeah, I have a bit of a tummy, and people will often ask me if I'm pregnant, which pisses me the fuck off. And if it happens on a good day, then I'll tend to say something like, oh no, I'm not pregnant, I'm just a bit fat. And then they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dickhead. Or if you catch me on a bad day when it happens, I will tell you that you're a very rude individual. So yeah, I do have a little bit of a tummy, and I've accepted it now. So 6 years ago, I started going to Melanie's classes semi-regularly. Like, I would still sometimes miss a day or miss a term here or there. But pretty much when I had Jonah, I went, you know what, you only live once. I have a weird body. I'm a mum now. I have an excuse for having a weird body now. And I decided to just go for it and to just start going to classes all the time. And I've really enjoyed it. And just this last term has been the first term where I started going to the intermediate performance class. So I started, the intermediate class, and so I was having to drive from Gladstone to Benarabi to attend classes as well, because she didn't have enough students last term. I think this term we will have enough students that we'll be able to have classes in Gladstone, so that'll be good. And I decided then and there I wasn't going to miss a single lesson unless I had a legitimate reason. I wasn't going to not go because I wasn't in a bad mood. Like, sometimes I would have had a bad day and I'd have been crying all day, so my eyes would have been red, and I would have gone, you know what, I'll just stay home tonight, I won't go to belly dancing class. Or I'd have a term where I wouldn't prioritize the money towards it, or I would just be like, oh, I'll just skip it this term and I'll go back next term and I'll learn a different dance. And I've made the decision and the commitment now to not do that anymore. I'm going to prioritize the money towards belly dancing classes. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to maybe spend less money on tarot and oracle cards and crystals and the like, and spend a bit more money on costumes. And I absolutely love it. And as you may have seen in my video a few weeks ago, I choreographed a dance myself, which I performed at my end of term hafla, so our troop's end of term breakup, and I loved doing that. That was fantastic. I'd sort of always been interested in choreographing a dance, and I talked to my teacher about it, and I'd say to her, you know, what's the process when you choreograph a dance? How do you do it? And she would say, oh, you know, you just listen to the music, and sometimes you'll hear certain parts of the music that'll make you want to move a certain way, or a certain accent in the music, and you'll do an accent with a movement. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's really great. And then over time I started to think, you know what, I can do that. And I listened to the song, I heard the song Dark Water by Amy Lee and Dave Eggar featuring Malika Zara. And that is from the Aftermath soundtrack, so the soundtrack for the movie War Story, I think it is, which I haven't seen, unfortunately. I think it'd be a really good movie and I would like to see it. But I heard this song, and it was kind of, if you've heard it, you'll know what I mean. It's kind of an atmospheric kind of techno song with like some heavy metal elements in it and stuff. But it's also got the Arabic singing in it, and I loved it. And so for ages I would listen to this song and kind of make up movements. And then when I decided that I was going to choreograph a dance and do a solo dance at the end of term breakup, all these movements just started coming to me. And so there's this bit in the song which, if you watch my performance, you'll know, like, I do a chest circle, and I thought to myself for ages, like, is it chest lift, and then I was like, no, it's definitely chest circle. And then there's another part where I'm like this, and I'm like, and that actually came about because I had a little bit of a headache, and going like this was helping. So I was like, and then I worked that into the dance, and then I did it the other way, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a good expression of your creativity to choreograph a dance, and I would highly recommend it. And to all of the women who commented on that video and said, oh, this is great, I would love to be a belly dancer one day, my advice is to just go for it. You only live once. You've got the body that you've got. Your body is perfect for belly dancing. You can adjust your costumes so that you're covering any parts of your body that you don't want to show off. Even your arms, like my arms aren't too bad, I'm not too self-conscious about them, but you can cover up your arms if you want to. Like, there's things that you can do to just move and dance and enjoy it, and you will look beautiful dancing if you dress yourself up and all of that. And people might look at you and at first go, oh, you know, she doesn't look conventional, she's not marketable, you know, she's not a stunning beauty, which, you know, don't get me wrong, I think I'm beautiful, but I know that I'm not a conventionally beautiful woman. Like, I haven't got any modeling contracts coming at me, I know this, but I still feel good dancing, and people look at me And then once I start dancing, they'll go, oh wow, how is she doing that? It always happens, even if you're not, if you haven't got the best body or whatever, people will see you dancing and they will be astounded. As long as you get the moves right, which is a bit of a challenge for me. I need to keep working on getting the moves right when I dance. But it's a lot of fun, and it really is a good expression of your creativity. So I'm a mum now, and I don't get to pick up paints and pencils very often. Sometimes I'll do art with my kids and we'll get the paints out and we'll play together, and I'll draw some pictures of some suns and rainbows and flowers or whatever to prompt them to draw and paint. But I don't get out my nice supplies and do art for myself very often, unless I can get away from the kids and get some time away from them, because they get into everything. Like my daughter, if I had pastels out, my daughter would just pick them up and they'd be all over the wall in no time. And some of you might know, if you're friends with me or if you've followed me for a while, you'll know that for a while I was using air drying clay to make jewelry and magical tools and things like that at one stage. And so I didn't get to do that very often either, and I never got very good at it because I wasn't practicing enough. And one day I was making some little bits of jewelry and stuff with crystals, and I used the air drying clay and I put them up on the kitchen counter, thinking that was enough out of Jonah's reach. And Jonah, he would have been like 2 or 3, came up and squeezed them while they were still wet and ruined them. And I was so upset. I had to get up and go out for a walk so that I wouldn't punch anybody, and I was just walking and just crying. I was so upset that my art got destroyed. So if you're a mum, dancing and doing performance art is a really good way to express your creativity as a creative person in a way that your kids can't trash. So that's a really good thing for mums. And if you are an artist and you don't have kids, that's fantastic. I respect you, all the respect in the world for you. Kids are the worst. I'm just saying. But obviously I love my kids, and I'm kidding, but they do get in the way of you wanting to express yourself creatively sometimes. And so dance has been a really good solution for me, and a really good way to express my creativity, which has been a missing piece of the puzzle for me. A lot of years ago, I used to identify as an artist, and art was one of my main things that I loved. And then I had a bad experience in grade 11 with my art teacher, which I won't go into too much detail about, but I dropped out of art in year 11 and switched to multi-strand science of all things, just so that I could get a passing grade for year 12. So that was what I did, and I didn't do art anymore. But I had creative blocks, and I struggled with my identity as an artist for years. And to be honest, I think that that's part of what held me back in my recovery. And now that I'm connecting with that creative part of myself again, it's a missing piece of the puzzle for me, and it's made me feel great, and it's been a really important part of my recovery. So yeah, and dancing is getting out of the house. It's social, which is really good for your recovery as well. The ladies that I've met doing belly dance class, I'm not close friends with any of them yet because I haven't spent enough time with them outside of class, but they are absolutely 100% kindred spirits with me. They've got so much in common with me apart from just liking to dance. They're nerds and geeks. Sometimes they'll show up to class wearing a Harry Potter t-shirt or a Star Wars t-shirt or whatever. One day Melanie came to class wearing a Big Bang Theory scissors, paper, rock, Spock lizard shirt, and I just cracked up laughing. It was so funny. So yeah, and it's just growing up as a kid, being bullied, and sometimes at certain points in my schooling not having any friends. People would sometimes say to me, oh, it's because you're really weird and don't fit in, and we can't make the other kids like you. Maybe you could act different and then they'll like you. And I personally think that that's a terrible message to send to a child. I wish that someone had once said to me, you know what, one day you will have friends, and you don't need to change who you are and the things you like and what you're into to be good enough to have friends. One day you will find people who are like you and you will have friends, because that's what's happened in my life. Like, it may have taken years and years, but I now have friends who have stuff in common with me, and it's from being myself and pursuing my interests and passions and things that I love that I have been able to do that. And you actually can't do that unless you do be yourself. You can't find your people and the people who are right to be friends with you unless you follow your passions and interests and just be yourself. Like, within reason, don't be an asshole, but be the best version of yourself. And that's what I've done. And I think that that's a really important part of mental health recovery as well. And so I think that I've covered everything in this video now. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and hearing me talk about belly dancing. So thanks very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye!